Explain kind of what a supplement is, because that was a new term for me when I got into roofing. So what is that?
Say you're in a car accident and your body shop says that it's going to cost $15,000 to fix your car, and the insurance company comes back and says, no, it can be done for 10. So they send a check for $10,000 minus your deductible, right? Your deductible is the part that you're coming out of pocket, like a copay at the drugstore. All right. So, but it's going to cost 15. So a supplemental claim would be, no, you don't owe me $10,000. You owe me $15,000. So pay me my $5,000 more that you owe me so I can get the work done correctly. It's the same thing with maybe you have a kitchen fire and it's a $50,000 fire and they want to pay $35,000. So a supplemental claim would be, I'm claiming the additional $15,000 to do the work right and to put my kitchen back the way it was before the fire occurred.
What is like the first step to knowing and identifying that you are getting kind of underpaid? You know, because I wouldn't even know. I'm like, oh, okay, it's $10,000. How do you know that there's a need for more? Exactly. Like, does that make sense?
Sure. So this is the deal: is as a consumer, you don't know how much it costs to replace a roof or to redo a kitchen that had a house fire or a bunch of water damage from a water heater that's flooded the house. And so what you have to do is you have to find a contractor that you can trust, that's actually competent and that's honest, and get a good estimate from them. So you ask around and you find a referral from a contractor, because the truth is 90% of contractors out there do substandard construction. Only about 10% of them do exceptional workmanship, which is what most people want. You know, you never bargained for substandard construction when you bought your policy. But the carriers love it when the 90% of the contractors out there that do substandard construction come in with a lowball price. You can't get the good contractor who does exceptional workmanship to work for that paltry price. And so the consumer finds themselves in a squeeze, and because they don't know how to handle a claim, because how often does a consumer ever have a claim? So they don't even know how claims work. The adjuster has a tremendous advantage over the unsophisticated consumer, because the consumer doesn't know what's going on, and the adjuster does this all day long, every day. And the consumer can be taken advantage of very easily by these adjusters. And nowadays, back 15, 20 years ago, the adjusters were allowed to do the right thing. Nowadays, they're not even allowed to do the right thing. If they don't do what they're told, they'll be fired. And so you as the consumer have to educate yourself so that you have a level playing field and you can make the adjuster do the right thing by asking the right questions and documenting the loss properly.
So step one would probably be find a good contractor you could trust.
That's the very first thing you have to do, is you find a good contractor who does exceptional workmanship, that's honest, and that you can trust.
Okay, so I'm a sales rep and I'm selling for a contractor. How do I know that we're not part of the 90% and we're part of the 10%? Like what's the difference there?
You ask for references. So you would ask, say, give me 3 clients that you've done work for, and call up those clients and say, you know, tell me about Sam. Sam's working for this XYZ roofing company. Did Sam do what he promised that he would do? Tell me about the workmanship. And ask all those kinds of questions so that they can do their due diligence and actually vet the contractor and make sure that they're honest and they do good workmanship. Because the people that have used Sam and his company, they'll know. And so call those 3 references and check the companies out.
Cool. And so I'm a company, we're doing great workmanship. You know, it's like, crap, all these companies that are not doing good workmanship are actually pushing the pricing of
Correct.
The insurance carriers.
They're in a race
down.
to the bottom.
They're in a race to the bottom, right? And we don't want to be the company that's in a race to the bottom. How do we show the insurance company, hey, we're not on a race to the bottom. We're really just trying to do the job right, and we're trying to do it with good craftsmanship? What's the way to show the insurance company that?
So what the contractor does is they put together what's known as a scope of work. So whether it's a hail or wind damage to a roof or a fire in the kitchen or whatever the case may be, this is all the damaged property, and these are all the building components that are going to have to be replaced to properly repair your home or your commercial building. And and then they show all the labor that's required to do that as well, to put your building back using materials of like, kind, and quality, so that it's back the way it was prior to the event, whether it's a hailstorm or fire or whatever the case may be.
Where's like some good resources if somebody wanted to go do some more homework and somebody wanted to be like, okay, how do I know what line items I need to be putting on the scope? So, there's a lot of different things you could put. And sometimes people draw it up and they're just like shingles, gutter, and that's it. But you've got to put all these other little things. Where do we find like what I can put on there, what I can't, what's being too aggressive, what's not being aggressive enough?
So the question is every single line item on your contractor's scope of work legitimate and reasonable, or are there line items on their estimate that are illegitimate or unreasonable?
Yeah.
So you just simply, as the consumer, all you have to do is tell the adjuster, if my contractor has put line items on his estimate that are illegitimate or unreasonable, I want to strike those. However, I would like to first hear from you, how did you arrive at the conclusion that those line items are illegitimate or unreasonable? Not just because you say so, or we don't pay for that. No. How did you arrive at your conclusion that they're illegitimate or unreasonable? Because if they are, and you arrived at that conclusion in a legitimate, valid manner, then awesome, it should be stricken. However, if you just don't want to pay it, and you're not able to articulate how you arrived at your conclusion that they're illegitimate, then those line items should remain. So I read a book called Level the Playing Field, which you can actually download for free, an ebook version of my book, and you could read through there, and I wrote it to educate the consumer. I mean, if you have a claim for $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, and they're lowballing you $10,000 or $20,000, is it worth a few hours of your time to read the book to educate yourself so that you know what the heck's going on with your insurance claim, and then you can then ask the proper questions of the adjuster that will compel them to do the right thing and be able to settle your claim in a righteous manner. Righteous being what's right, not a penny more than what they owe, but not a penny less either.
You're meeting with the adjuster, and every adjuster is different temperaments, different backgrounds. So what is your best techniques or tips when you're up there meeting with the adjuster, maybe when you're trying to revisit this conversation, because you're like, give us some kind of best practices there.
My favorite question of all the questions, whenever an adjuster makes a statement that you disagree with or you think that might not be right, then ask this question. What makes you say that? So if they say, we don't pay for drip edge, or whatever nonsense thing that they happen to say, then you ask that question, what makes you say that? The beauty of that question is what you're really saying is put up or shut up. But you're framing it in a softball manner so that it's not quite so harsh and offensive, right? The objective isn't to frustrate the adjuster. The objective is to get him to realize that, you know what? That's a really good point. I haven't thought about it in that manner before. So the person asking the questions is always in control of the conversation. Most people don't realize this. When you're asking questions, you're in control of the conversation. So what you do is you don't make statements when you're talking to adjusters. You simply ask questions. You question carefully, and you listen carefully to their answers. And depending on what their answer is, that keys up your next question. And you ask question after question after question. In fact, you want to ask so many questions that the adjuster goes, wow, you really have a lot of questions. You're a very inquisitive person.
I love that. So let's say that you have an adjuster that's just, he's a hard A. He's like, don't get up here. I don't want to talk to you. Get away. And that happens.
To the consumer?
No. Oh, okay. So I'm saying to the
contractor.
To the contractor.
Yeah.
Shifting gears. So contractor a little bit. He's like there, ready for the adjuster to get there, which is highly recommended. A lot of companies obviously recommend that the roofing sales guy goes to the adjuster meet. So you're there to meet with the adjuster. What are some things that the roofing salesperson can do to help move this claim forward and get the most out of it?
The most important thing that I teach, hands down, the most important thing that I teach is the pre-adjustment conference. About 2 hours before the adjuster is scheduled to be there, you schedule an appointment with the consumer to sit down with them and to set expectations. Because someone's going to be setting expectations with the consumer. It's either going to be you, the contractor, or it's going to be the adjuster. So who has an alignment of interest with the consumer? The adjuster? No, their alignment of interest is with the insurance company. The contractor has an alignment of interest with the consumer to make sure that every legitimate and reasonable line item is included in the estimate and paid for appropriately.
Yeah.
So that the consumer gets a righteous settlement for their claim. Right? And so in the pre-adjustment conference, I wrote an entire chapter about this in my book, Level the Playing Field. In the pre-adjustment conference, what you do is you explain to the consumer what to expect at the site visit and with their adjustment, and bring them up to speed, not so that the consumer will be on the contractor side, so that the consumer will be on their own side and will take up for themselves and make sure that the adjuster does the right thing. And then if the adjuster refuses to do the right thing, then it's simple. The consumer then takes it up the ladder of authority in the claims department, trying to find someone who can be reasoned with. If no one at the claims department can be reasoned with, everyone's unreasonable, then what's happened is the claims department has backed the consumer into a corner. Now they have 5 options. Well, they can do nothing. I guess that would be the 6th option. Do nothing. Number 1, they can actually go ahead and hire the substandard contractor to do the substandard workmanship that the carrier has written their estimate for. They can do that. They can hire the exceptional contractor to do the exceptional workmanship, and they can come out of pocket the difference of their supplemental claim because the insurance company refuses to pay the supplemental claim. They can lawyer up. They can litigate. They can hire a public adjuster who represents them, which, isn't litigation. Or they can exercise they can invoke the appraisal clause, which is buried down in the bowels of the policy that says that you can have an independent panel of experts come out and appraise the value, the amount of your claim, and that's neither a public adjuster nor is it litigation. So those are the 6 options. The first one being do nothing, and you should certainly not choose do nothing.
Yeah.
And so those are the 5 options. The consumer shouldn't be put in a position where they have to select any of those options.
Yeah.
Because none of them are good for the consumer. But since this is the real world and not nirvana, in the real world, those are the options that the consumer has.
Cool. No, super helpful. This is super helpful. Let's say I'm a contractor and I see that I see that we're in this pickle. We're backed in a corner.
Yep.
And obviously I want to go get the most out of this job so that I can give them the best work, right? So I choose the route of, like, let's say litigation or public adjuster. And I'm like, hey, let's go these routes. What's kind of the process, like timelines, what's happening behind the scenes when they go those routes?
Well, the first thing you have to do as the contractor, you have to educate the consumer what their options are. Those 6 options that I just gave you. So you educate the consumer about that. And then you say, Mrs. Jones, let me ask you a question. Your insurance company is shorting you $10,000. So would you prefer to come out of pocket on the $10,000? Or would you prefer for the insurance company to fulfill their promises to you? You notice how I worded that. See, you're a wordsmith. I
Yep.
really like listening to you because the way you articulate things and you put things in such a manner, it's very easy for the person listening to be able to make a very good decision, right?
Yep.
Same thing. You don't say, how can we maximize the claim or anything like that, because it sounds like you're trying to milk the insurance company and trying to get some unfair advantage. Rather, what you say is, Mrs. Jones, would you prefer to come out of pocket for the $10,000, or would you prefer for the insurance company to fulfill their promises to you? Now, what do you think the consumer is going to say? Well, I would prefer for the insurance company to fulfill their promises to me. Well, here are the 3 different ways you can do that, Mrs. Jones. You can hire a public adjuster, you can hire an attorney to litigate, or you can go to appraisal. And then you, as the contractor, simply, without trying to steer them in any one of the 3 directions, you simply educate them, the good, the bad, and the ugly, on those 3 options, and then you allow them to decide what they want to do, what's in their best interest.
Love that. So let's kind of role play. I'll be customer. You're sales rep.
Mm-hmm.
You're educating me on, okay, here's the 3 options.
Mm-hmm.
Walk me through what that would look like.
Okay, so litigation, you understand what it means to file a lawsuit. So an attorney, you would hire an attorney and they would represent you, and they stand in your shoes and they speak on your behalf. The insurance company hires a lawyer, and many times they're able to bring the claim to resolution and settle the claim without having to actually go to court. Most of the time they can do that. If the insurance company continues to be unreasonable, then they litigate and it goes to court and it's a lawsuit. And it's a very effective way. In many states, the insurance company, if the consumer is correct, and the insurance company should have paid and they win the suit, in many states, the insurance company has to pay the attorney's fees. So make sure, if you're in one of the states that doesn't pay attorney fees, that you know this so that you understand your financial obligation to pay the attorney. The second option would be hire a public adjuster. A public adjuster is just like a claims adjuster, only their alignment of interest, they represent the insured, the consumer. So you can hire a public adjuster. They typically take 10% cut of the entire claim. And the good public adjusters will get you far more than that. So that not only will you get what you need to get the work done, but enough to cover the 10% many times as well, depending on the public adjuster and how they write their estimates and such. And the appraisal clause, the way that works is there's 2 experts. Usually they're adjusters or contractors, and they do this on a regular basis. I've done almost 2,000 appraisals in 23 years. And so the 2 appraisers go out. First thing they do is they name a tiebreaker guy, known as an umpire. And then the 2 go out and do a site visit. They take a look at the damage, and then they put together their appraisal, which is like an estimate, their appraisal of the damage. The 2 appraisers would then sit down and compare their appraisals to see what remains a dispute between the 2 of them, and whatever, 3, 5, 10 line items that are in dispute, they discuss those things and see if they can bring the loss to resolution. If they're able to do that, then they sign the paperwork and the carrier pays.
Cool.
If they're not able to do that, they involve that third person, the umpire, and then the umpire then brings the appraisal to conclusion. And so that usually costs, depending on, it could take a couple months, and, a small residential loss maybe costs $1,000 or $2,000 to do appraisal, something like that. We're doing a $29 million appraisal in Houston right now, and it's probably going to end up costing about $50,000 to handle that. But it's a $29 million loss. So,
yeah.
So that particular business owner decided to go to appraisal rather than litigate or hire a public adjuster. All 3 are legitimate ways to settle claims.
That's awesome. No, that's super helpful. Thank you so much. So let's say homeowners sitting there like, wow, this sounds like a lot of work. Do we really need to go this extent, or like this just seems like too much?
And so that brings us to the first 2 options. You can hire a substandard contractor to do substandard work on your house, and they'll work for the insurance proceeds that they're trying to get you to settle for. you can always do that. You can get crap work done on your house. And if you want to get crap work done on your house, then knock yourself out.
Boom. What a good line.
Or you can come out of pocket the difference. So let's say Sam's company's at $50,000 to do the work right, and the insurance company's paying $35,000. So you can come out of pocket the $15,000 to do the work right. So if you prefer to pay $15,000 rather than making the insurance company fulfill their promise, then knock yourself out. Come out of pocket to $15,000. Go get a loan, whatever you want to do. Me, I think that the insurance company ought to fulfill their promises. That's just me. I'm an insurance claims adjuster, and so of course I believe the insurance company should fulfill their promise. But it's your decision.
So a lot of homeowners, obviously we've been trained our whole lives that we got to get 3 bids, we got to get cheap, we got to get, the best bang for our buck. That's just like a buyer's conditioning, right?
Are you trying to see who can save the insurance company the most amount of money?
Boom. Such a good line.
Is that what you're trying to do? Is that what the consumer should be doing, trying to see who can save the insurance company the most amount of money? Or should the consumer be trying to make sure that all the work is done with materials of like kind and quality to construction best practices? The top 10% of contractors do their work at construction best practices. They do exceptional workmanship. The other 90% simply do not. They don't. They don't care about you. They care about collecting the check. It's sad but true in the contracting industry that 90% don't care about the consumer. They care about collecting a check. You want to hire someone in the 10%. That's the reason why you have to do your due diligence and you have to vet the contractor through the referral process.
So consumers now stunned with kind of like, wait, what? And to help understand this, either way, the consumer pays what? The deductible. And
it's important to, as a contractor, when you're first visiting with the consumer, instead of saying all you have to be out of pocket is your deductible and any upgrades, you don't say that. And see, that's what all the contractors say. You don't say that. What you say is, provided that the insurance company fulfills their promise to you, all you have to be out of pocket is your deductible and any upgrades.
So you're helping condition.
Provided that they fulfill their promise to you and pay correctly. If they don't fulfill their promise to you, then you might have to be out more money than the deductible. And see,
love this. This is good.
It's important that you qualify that, provided that the insurance company does the right thing.
Yeah. Because if you don't, they're just looking for like, how do I get my deductible paid for? How do I get like free?
And I wrote a chapter on that.
Yes.
So if you as a contractor have a consumer that's trying to persuade you to violate the law, it's a Class A misdemeanor to eat deductibles and eat the deductible, then all you have to do is say, Mrs. Jones, I have a book written by an insurance claims expert, right? And he wrote a chapter about this. If you would do me a favor and take 5 minutes and read this chapter, I think you'd find it very enlightening. And so she reads my chapter on eating the deductible, and she goes, oh, well, I never thought about it this way. Never mind. I'll pay my deductible out of pocket. And see, now, the contractor isn't the one saying these things.
You're using
third-party documentation from an insurance claims expert who wrote a book on the subject. So he must be the authority, the subject matter expert, since he wrote a book on it.
Yes. Using props is huge, people. Articles, book chapters, authority, because nobody trusts the sales guys.
Sure, because you have a financial interest. Of course, you want the price to be high in the consumer's mind, right? So if the consumer reads something from an insurance claims expert who doesn't have a financial interest in their claim, they're going to give that person the authority and the expertise, and they're going to believe them.
Okay, so let's kind of map out. Let's say consumers like, I'm not going to read your chapter. Do you have kind of a bullet pointed, like, here is the reason? Obviously, it's breaking the law to pay the deductible. How do you explain that to them without saying, go read the chapter? What's another avenue that you could maybe take?
See, in our state, I'm in Texas, so what So you relate it to whatever state you're in. In the state of Texas, it's a Class A misdemeanor for a contractor to eat a deductible. So only criminals commit criminal acts. People who aren't criminals don't do criminal acts, right? And so if you want to hire a criminal to work on your home, then there's lots of guys out there that are criminals that'll be happy to do that. We're not criminals and we don't commit criminal acts. And if they want to hire a criminal, then they're not your customer. And you move along and find a customer who is.
Yeah. Yeah, because a lot of states, consumers kind of get bad conditioning. Mm-hmm. And the subpar contractors have conditioned them to say, oh, well, the last guy ate my deductible. Or, hey, it's like lazy, bad sales reps. And that's what it is.
Well, it is laziness.
It's learn good sales techniques. To learn to be a good salesperson and value the service you're bringing is going to help you have more confidence to go into the conversation of not having to eat deductibles. And so if your owner of your company or manager is teaching you that, oh, the only way we can sell is by paying people's deductible, I would say the only thing you should reply is become a better salesperson, learn better techniques, have more integrity in yourself to literally say, I don't need to be bad. I don't need to go the lazy route, the unethical route. Take the high road. And that's what we're trying to get at in this.
And it takes a significant, if you're eating the deductible, it takes a significant percentage of your net profit. And you're just giving it away. I mean, who wants to take their net profit, which is why you're doing this, is to make a profit, right? Who wants to take away a significant percentage of their net profit and just give it away and leave that money on the table? Learn how to sell.
Yeah, learn how to sell. So now that you've convinced customer, you're like, great, we're going to go fight with the insurance to kind of help, obviously, get what you were rightfully owed. Is there any touch points along the way that you recommend to do with the consumer to kind of like, let's say it's a 3-month, 2-month process. What's your follow-up like to make sure that it still sticks?
So what you say is, Mrs. Jones, let me ask you. So given the choice between the 10% contractors who do exceptional workmanship and the 90% who do substandard workmanship, which would you prefer? And she's going to say, well, I would prefer the exceptional workmanship. You're probably wondering, Mrs. Jones, is there a catch? Yes, there is a catch. And let me tell you what the catch is. The catch is, if you're going to want the insurance companies to fulfill their promise to you and pay for the exceptional workmanship to construction best practices, then you're going to have to make an investment of about an hour of your time, 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, making the insurance company fulfill their promise to you. Shouldn't the insurance companies be fulfilling their promise to you, Mrs. Jones? So I'll help you word these emails. I'll give you, I'll educate you. I'll give you some training. And so that you can then write the emails that you need to write to make the insurance companies fulfill their promise to you. So the question is this: is it worth an hour of your time to get exceptional workmanship rather than substandard construction? Make the insurance companies fulfill their promise to you. If the answer to that question is yes, then we're your contractor. And if the answer to that question is no, then I can introduce you to contractors who do substandard construction, because we don't do that to people. And there's your close, Sam.
Such a good close.
We don't do that to people.
I was just going to say, I was like, boom, that's a close.
There's
people.
your close.
It's a close. This is a sales training as much as it is a insurance adjuster claims training, guys.
The entire thing is closing.
Yes.
You close early and you close what?
Always and often. Yeah.
Often.
Like I'm like, no, so
the whole time.
So this is part of basically not being the needy and being the needed. And that reverse is so important. It's the pullback of saying, hey, I'm okay walking away. Like I used to call it the folder close, because I'd be like, oh, it doesn't seem like you're really interested in doing the things that we need you to do. So I'm gonna give you a phone number of somebody else, and I'd shut
The takeaway.
I'd shut the folder, and I'd start to turn like, no, 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 no. And they realize that you're willing to walk away from the deal, and it actually creates the close right then and there. So
In fact, you're qualifying them.
yeah,
They may be qualifying you to see whether or not they hire you, but you're qualifying them to see if you want them to be one of your clients. And the answer may be no. They don't qualify to be one of your clients, and so you do walk away. You don't want every job. In fact, if you've been doing this for any amount of time at all, you know for sure that you don't want every job. You want the good prospects to become your clients, the ones who actually qualify to be your clients. And that's who you want to work with.
so they say yes, they sign. They're like, I'm in. You kind of, I'm assuming you set some kind of timeline expectation,
Well, sure.
some kind
That's the pre-adjustment conference. And the pre-adjustment conference, you explain how claims work,
Okay.
and you set expectations for them, because as a professional contractor, you know the amount of time that it typically takes, especially depending on the carrier.
Yep.
You could have one carrier that responds in a reasonable manner very quickly and promptly, and you have other guys who they play musical adjusters. Every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, they give you another adjuster, and they stretch the thing out for months and months, hoping that the consumer will then just languish in frustration, and then just throw up their hands and discuss and say, forget the whole thing, and the carrier wins. That's the reason why setting the expectations in the pre-adjustment conference is vital. Because then the consumer understands what's going on. It's interesting because you can teach them what adjusters say, and then when they hear the adjuster say those things that the contractor has taught them, they go, yes, my contractor told me you would say that.
Love that.
And then what kind of credibility does the contractor have with the consumer now?
So good.
Because the adjuster's saying all these things that the contractor had already taught them that the adjuster's going to say, and then the contractor helps them read between the lines and know what the adjuster is actually saying when they say things like, we don't pay for that, and things of that nature.
Love that.